Hey guys, thanks for coming to the channel again. And if you like my channel and want to watch it on a regular basis, please hit the subscribe button. If you'll hit the like, put a comment in the bottom, it'll help grow the channel. So let's get right into it. Today, let's talk about something that a lot of people don't do in the dead cold of winter. And that is throwing a swim bait. Now, I know some of you guys do in some of these deeper, rockier lakes, but most time, people will throw some type of finesse bait, Alabama rig, or a jerk bait in really cold water, or maybe bottom bumping stuff like silver buddies and those types of things. So I'm gonna lay the scenario out for you. I went fishing yesterday. It's the middle of February. It's cold. The air temperature yesterday for a high was like 44. When I got to the boat ramp in about noon, I didn't go early, about noon, there's nobody there. I wasn't surprised. The wind was blowing about 20, 25, and the wind chill was, way below freezing. So put the boat in, water temperature 42 degrees, and I'd been to this lake several times this winter and not done real well. But I kind of had scanned the lake, and most of the life was in one little area of the lake. And I just, for whatever reason, didn't spend much time trying to catch the fish in that area. Had in my mind thought maybe, well, these must be carp, catfish, every other type of fish. Just can't be this many bass here. And there wasn't that many bass there. But what was there was pretty much every fish in the lake of every species. And the reason why is we're in a smaller lake, 50-acre lake, 60-acre lake, and most of the lake is about 6 foot deep on average. But there's one area down closer by the dam, obviously, not right at the dam, but down closer by the dam that, has 9, 10 feet of water in it. And it's where the creek channel kind of makes a little bit of a bend there. And that area was absolutely loaded with fish. So I was bound and determined when I showed up that I was going to figure out how I was going to catch these fish. And so I spent about a half hour trying to finesse these fish. 42-degree water temperature now, blowing cold, drop shot, shaky head, different things. And never even had a bump. I threw to every little spike that I saw, every little stump that I saw, everything that I saw, and they just wouldn't even touch it. And so I'm looking at my forward facing sonar, and the bottom is just kind of like alive. And what that is shad on the bottom. So I thought, I'm gonna throw a swim bait out there and slow roll it. And I ended up whacking them. Good quality fish on a swim bait, slow rolled. And on my recap, I'll tell you exactly what it was. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of on the water here, some of these fish catches. Unfortunately, I lost the audio on all but one of my tracks for these fish catch. So I'll just run the audio one first and stream the fish catches, past kind of quick, because I'm talking but you can't hear it, so it's not going to do you much good. So let's take a look at that, and then I'll recap it here on the backside. Freezing cold out here today. Water temperature is 42. Excuse me. The middle of February, and I found a little ditch in this lake that I'm fishing, and it's absolutely crawling with fish. I've been throwing the drop shot around, they won't respond to it. And then pick up a little swim bait on a jig head and slow roll it across the bottom. That's the second good one I've caught now in like 3 casts. Stay tuned. here. That swim bait was a 3.8 Kitech in Tennessee shad. Nothing special. Probably the most popular swim bait on the planet. Pretty much every one of you either owns it or something that looks a lot like it. And it had a 3/8 ounce, fisheye head in it. Nothing special. Again, matter of fact, the hook was slightly small, and I had a little bit of hassle, with the hook wanting to straighten out on me when I was boat flipping some of these bigger fish. So you may want to go up in hook size just a little bit. So what I ended up keying on was the deepest section of the lake. There was 9-10 foot of water in this one section of the lake. And when they filled these old lakes, before there was a lake there was just basically a ditch running down through the woods, and they put a dam on the end of it and cut the timber, and you end up with the old creek channel like you have in a lot of reservoirs, but also in small lakes. So there was a bend in the creek channel here on a pretty much nothing bank. I mean, a nothing bank. The thing that the fish were keying on was that depth. That gave them the most depth that they could get. To a point, some lakes are deep, and the deepest part is not going to be the best necessarily. But they were keying on that depth. And what I was keying on, I could see the fish moving around, on my sonar live scope forward facing. And there was a lot of piles of crappie and a little bit of shad moving around. But most of the shad in the wintertime in these smaller lakes, they just get on the bottom. And if you see them with forward-facing sonar, it looks like the bottom is just kind of crawling, because those shad will just get right on the bottom and just scoot along the bottom. They don't get up in balls like they do when the water's warmer sometimes. In these smaller lakes anyhow, there's not enough depth there for them to want to suspend. In a deep lake, they're going to want to suspend to get up more towards that sun. But they don't need to do that when it's only 9-10 foot deep at the most. So I was keying on those areas that were crawling with shad on the bottom, but I was literally throwing to stumps, and there were little small patches of hydrilla. I mean, tabletop size at the most. It would be a big patch. More like, truck seat size patches of hydrilla, and you could see them, the little glowing spots when you looked around. And so I was kind of keying on those little glowing spots on the bottom. A lot of times I couldn't really even see the fish, so they were just hunkered down in there. And I was winding that swim bait, throwing it out, letting it go to the bottom, and winding it literally as slow as I could possibly wind it, trying to keep, just bottom contact. So what that was doing, that was mimicking exactly what those shad were doing in that area of the lake. And me throwing the 3.8 Kitech, which is bigger than the 3.3 or the 2.8, which are real popular in the wintertime, I was self-calling the smaller fish and ended up catching 16 keepers, missed a couple, had a couple pull off. So that's a ton of bites for 42-degree water temperature on something that you're winding. And that 3.8 was appealing to the better fish. I only caught 2 fish of the 16 were under 2 pounds, and they weren't much under 2 pounds. Most of those fish were 2 3/4 to 4.5 was that big one. He might have been 4 1/4, but he was a good one either way, fat. So that's what I was doing. So when finesse tactics don't work for you, and I love to finesse fish in the wintertime, man, I've won a ton of tournaments throwing a shaky head or some other type of finesse bait, a Ned rig or a drop shot in cold water. And that just wasn't working. So every day there's something that will work for you. Some days you're not going to catch as many as others, but every day something will work for you. So just remember that next time you're out at your lake. If you see the bottom crawling with shad, they're not up in the water column, they're down on the bottom. Throw a shad imitating swim bait like a Kitech or Rage, whatever that you like to throw. I'm sure it'll work. Crawl it along, and you may have one of the best winter fishing days of your life. Again, thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.